Hello and welcome to the Breaking Muscle podcast, where we bring you the stories of some of the leading athletes in all of fitness. I am Pete Hitzeman, managing editor of BreakingMuscle.com, and joining me as co-host today is Master Coach Mike Tremello of Precision CrossFit. In the aviation community, there is a saying that there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are no old, bold pilots. There's perhaps no better example of this unity of experience and intelligent discretion than Bill and James Grundler, the brothers who dominated the men's 45-49 division in this year's CrossFit Open. 2017 will be their third trip to the Games together as Masters athletes, and all the early indications are that the rest of the field had better bring their A-game. We have a lot of fun and cover a lot of ground in this interview, including James's breakthrough performance in the 2016 CrossFit Games and the importance of having something beyond your training to keep you anchored. Bill goes into depth about what it really means to be an aging athlete, explaining that more is never better. Better is always better. Mike talks about giving Bill and James smart volume at the right time during the lead-up to competition, and we put our guest work together for a preview of the 2017 CrossFit Games in Madison, Wisconsin. If you'd like to get more insight on the ins and outs of being a Masters athlete, be sure to check out Bill Grundler's Master Experience seminar at Precision CrossFit in Agoura Hills, California this Saturday, July 22nd. The link to register is in the show notes. Joining us today from Southern California again are Bill and James Grundler, the 1-2 wrecking crew of the California Masters men's 45-49 division, and Mike Tremello of Precision CrossFit, who is still coaching them, I think.
We'll go with I think.
I think so.
It's a very down-low kind of relationship. How is everybody doing today?
Good, doing good.
Awesome.
Good, man.
Great.
Thanks everybody for making the time to talk to us. I know it's between juggling athlete schedules and business schedules and many vacations with one's wife. It's always a challenge. So you guys did something really cool this year, and I don't know if anybody's talked about it a whole lot, but a 1-2 finish from brothers in a CrossFit Open is kind of a cool thing. Tell me how that went down from your guys' perspective.
Well, I'll
Bill,
start on
go
that
ahead.
one. I'll take it.
Why don't you take this?
I'll take this one. Now, I'll say this. It wasn't even a 1-2. It was a 1-1
1-1.
Right.
tie between two brothers.
Okay.
That's never been done before.
Right.
Even though, okay, technically speaking, he won that one. He won the Open because he had more wins than I did. Totally fine. But it was the way they do the scoring in the Open is we came out with equal points, and I honestly thought it was by far the coolest thing ever. and as far as the stuff that I've done in CrossFit, I thought that was super cool.
You've done a lot of stuff in CrossFit, so that's saying something.
Well, I mean, in reality, the only reason that I decided to do the Masters was because of him. So
Yeah.
the fact that, getting into the Masters and watching him grow and improve and get better at the competitive side of CrossFit, and then being able to go, and tie for first place out of the Open, that's just awesome. That's awesome.
I think he just wanted to keep me company.
Totally.
Couldn't have you
man, absolutely. It's great when you're brothers and you're older and you actually like each other. When you're younger, you're in each other's face all the time. It's just annoying. But now that we're older, it's cool.
So James, how did you get sort of drug into this CrossFit thing? I gather that Bill was all in it, and basically you came along later.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I remember when Bill started and how fanatical he was about it, because most people are when they first start in CrossFit. They get super fanatical about all the workouts and stuff. And I dabbled a, very, very limited amount. But I guess you could say my job or what I was doing wasn't really didn't really work or cohesive enough to do the strain of the workouts and stuff. I mean, I was playing music and
Can't be a rock and roll star and being an athlete at the same time.
Yeah, the lifestyle was a little different.
Sex, drugs, rock
tough.
and roll, and wads just don't work out the same way.
Right. Sex, drugs, rock and roll for as many rounds
And
as
some shoulder to overhead.
Anyway, so I was mainly just playing music and stuff, so it wasn't really conducive for me to do the whole thing. And then, 2013, it's like I got off the road and I needed an outlet, and CrossFit was there, and just went head first into it, and it was exciting and joyous and upsetting and depressing and painful and rewarding all at the same time. You know?
Absolutely. So, and been getting better as it goes. I mean, last year I think you finished 7th at the games.
That'd be sixth. That'd be sixth.
Technically sixth.
How dare I?
Pardone on that one.
Last year was a big breakthrough for me. I think understanding the whole competitive aspect of CrossFit, because, you know, when I came from being a wrestler, and it was a different headspace, different setup, the way you go into a competition. You know, like when you're wrestling, you're actually combating against somebody physically one-on-one. With this, you're not really fighting somebody one-on-one. It's just you fighting the clock and a barbell or whatever's in front of you. You know what I mean? And it was a different mentality, and I learned about pacing and competing, and it was a big turning point for me last year. So it was exciting for me.
One of the things that was hysterical, having Jim come from the wrestling background where we were, and then watching me and being my support system in like my early part of the CrossFit, was he would get so upset at me by being friends with these guys and like being like, hey man, what's going on? He's like, what the hell are you talking to these guys like that for? You gotta crush these guys. I'm like, man, it's different. It's not that same way. You know, I'm not crushing them. I just have to pick up a barbell a bunch of times really fast. Like, that's it. And so it's competitive, but it's very different than what we came from, you know, as far as like going out and wanting to hurt somebody and put them down to the ground. And the idea was you make them hurt so you break them and then you beat them after that, not the other way around. And it wasn't until he tried his first CrossFit competition, which was an event we did up here at Pismo Beach. And he came out, you know, same thing, all, you know, not wanting to talk to anybody, and, you know, had that look of like, I'm gonna kick your ass, I'm gonna smash you, and I'm gonna do this, and then he doesn't get to touch anybody, you know. And it was after the event that he goes, oh, I get it. You can actually like compete and like people at the same time. So that was a very new experience. And then, you know, watching him grow through that, where he was, hey, you know what, I think I kind of want to be good at this. Do you think I can do this stuff? I'm like, yeah, totally. And then it just grew from there. But what was really cool was it was a very natural progression. It was a very organic progression. It wasn't the way a lot of athletes are nowadays, where they come in being a decent whatever they were, basketball, soccer, swimmer, and being like, oh, you know, I'm going to the games this year.
Right.
That's what everyone thinks.
Did you guys do any of the workouts like head-to-head together this year for the Open, or no?
Not like at the same time.
Unfortunately, we didn't. I mean, I would have loved to have done that, but I had a different idea of what I thought the regional qualifier, the Open, was going to be like. And but it would have been a lot of fun. I'm sad we didn't do that, actually. It would have been fun.
Yeah, it'd be great TV.
But
That's
no.
all I'm saying.
I would say one of the differences is, for me, time is always an issue for me. And so usually when I get the workouts in, it's when I'm able to fit them in. And so I can be like, oh yeah, we'll do it every Friday at this time, or Saturday at this time. I'm always either coaching the classes or trying to get my stuff, you know, with my kids or whatever else is going on. And then it's like, oh, I got 15 minutes? Sweet, let's throw it in now. So that makes it difficult. Like Mike's shaking his head. He knows that's the way I do my stuff. But
no, it's true. It's true. Most of his open workouts were done at like midnight.
Yeah.
Wow.
Bill's a extreme challenge as a coach, because his schedule is ridiculous.
Well, he's only running 3 gyms. I mean, no big deal.
Well, not just running 3 crits, having 2 children. Running 3 gyms, having 2 children, and traveling in the middle of the Open to do a live announcement.
Right.
You know, like, hey, Bill, where are you? I'm going to Europe. Okay, I'll see you next week. All right. You sounded great. You sounded great online, Bill.
Doing burpee broad jumps down the airport concourse, like, no big deal.
Yeah. People ask me all the time, like, hey, how do you coach these guys, or how do you find time? I'm like, honestly, Bill's taught me how to like arrange around people's schedules more than anybody could ever imagine.
Which is cool, because he always tells me, he's like, look, man, you can arrange your schedule because I'm arranging my schedule. I'm like, okay, you're probably right. I could probably do it a little bit better.
I do say that to him, because I do have a busy schedule as well, and I do have 2 kids.
Absolutely.
A lot of events. I do run a lot of events, so I kind of
No, man, time is. I will say that that's one of the things that I think being a master's athlete that a lot of the younger athletes have no idea about yet. They don't understand that, like, what do you mean I don't have 5 hours to train? I thought that's what everybody does. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe, if your kids are older, maybe. If you only have your kids certain times of the week, maybe. But there are so many variables between families, jobs, responsibilities, and then wanting to be an athlete on top of that. It gets really crazy. And the young guys and girls, they just don't know that yet. They have no idea what's in store for them yet.
Well, and even leaving the time complications aside, what's going to be the maximal benefit to your physiology may not be 5 hours in the gym in a day, So it's the creative
all the time. That we all can do that, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what that means? That we all should work out because that's what Rich and Matt do.
Right. There's a lot of I'm kind of more in the endurance sports. Right there. There's a lot of like dumb volume that goes on, just like miles and miles and miles and volume and volume and volume, and it's like it's a lot of diminishing returns. Your injury risk goes up. You're spending a lot of time not with your family at that point. You're not recovering as much because you're out 3 or 4 hours a day. Like maybe you should be a little more busy so you train a little less because you're not really actually helping yourself.
Well, I always say all the time.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
My biggest thing with athletes that I coach is I don't like it if they don't do something else. I don't like coaching athletes or working with athletes that their whole life revolves around CrossFit and their next workout. It just doesn't work for me. Like, what else do you got going on?
There's got to be something else to mentally anchor you in life too, because there's so many like rough days in a training cycle that if that's the only thing you do and you just go home and brood about it for the next 5 hours, like that's not good for you either.
Not at all.
So let's talk about that.
That's every CrossFit athlete the first 2 years that they do CrossFit, though. That's all they want to talk about. Right.
Yeah, it's one thing to talk about as a hobby. It's one thing to talk about as a hobby and like live it. It's another thing to just like be obsessed about it, and that's all you are. That's all you are. Not all you do, all you are. You got to be more than that.
Right. I agree.
Let's take a different tack for a second and just kind of go on to go down the Masters Athlete rabbit hole, if you will. You guys are actually hosting a seminar all about the Masters Athlete mystery, if you will, coming next weekend. And there's kind of two different angles to think about Masters athletes there from everything that I look at, and I'm edging up on that age where I have to start thinking about it for myself too, where you need to be careful and don't break them. But on the other hand, you have a lot of people who have maybe never been athletes before, and they might need to just be pushed because they don't realize that what's uncomfortable is fine. Like, it's not hurting you to be uncomfortable.
Right.
How do you kind of find that balance?
Well, the seminar is called Masters Experience, and it is understanding what being older means. And generally speaking, the most older athletes are people that think, oh, I'm over 35 now, I'm instantly going to go to the games, and I'm instantly going to be an awesome athlete, has to realize what it really means to be older. Your body doesn't recover the way it used to. Depending where you are starting to lose muscle mass and strength and speed and quickness. You have a lot more responsibilities. You have a lot more stress on your body. You have a lot more stress that you deal with on a regular basis. And so now, how do you manage all of that stuff while still trying to be competitive, while still trying to train, especially if you are in the games level, if that's something that you really want to do or that you are there, there's a responsibility just to do the appropriate amount of training in what you're doing. And it's not just about volume, just like what we were talking about earlier. Yes, you need to have an engine, but yes, you need to be strong. But a lot of the things that people miss are, I need to be able to move. And one of the things that I see on a regular basis are these big, strong Masters athletes that cannot squat to depth have any kind of range of motion. That, to me, is not a good athlete. I mean, they're missing massive components to their fitness, even though they're able to kind of get around it with all of these other whatever. They're able to hold the bar up still, even though it's just in an absolutely horrid position. All that is asking for more injury, speeding up the increase of injury, or improving or increasing the injuries that they already have and really shortening up whatever kind of functionality they have. A Masters athlete shouldn't be that way. We have to be smart about what we have and what we can do. We have to be smart on how we attack what we do, and that's what the seminar is about doing. It's about, one, the athlete side, but then even dealing with I mean, we'll call them masters, but older members in the gym. There is a certain way that they need to be able to be handled and taken care of. Understanding certain modifications, understanding certain scales on movements, so that they are able to still improve their movement, still improve their range of motion, still improve their flexibility, gaining strength, just so that they can go and play with their grandkids and pick up their grocery bags or do yard work outside or whatever. There needs to be a smarter way to do it, because the template that we have right now is the Rich Froning, Matt Fraser template, and that's not a template as you get older. It just doesn't work that way.
There's kind of two concepts, behind programming for athletes who have been in the game for a while, and there's what's your chronological age and what's your athletic age? How many years have you been? How many miles are on those legs? That kind of thing.
Yeah, that's
something
a big
I see
factor.
A lot. Yeah, and Mike, you'd probably be great to talk to this point. Something I see a lot are people whose athletic age is 0, even though their chronological age is 45.
Oh, that's
and that has its whole own unique kind of thing. Like, they might be able at some point to go super, super hard and become very good, assuming they don't carry a lot of baggage of injury. But how do you kind of get them there?
I'll give you a great example of what you just said. I had a girl, Bill knows her really well. Her name's Jess Gozer. Jess's athletic age was 1 when she started CrossFit. She had not done a sport in her entire life until she turned 25, 26, and it was CrossFit. So when she got into CrossFit, she was so fresh that she never got injured until about her 4th year into CrossFit. Then she started getting injuries, and then she didn't know how to deal with them because she'd never been injured in her life. And then we had to constantly learn how to work through those. So you get athletes like Bill and James, they're athletes. They've been athletes their entire lives. So there's mileage on those legs. You don't get a lot of masters right now that only have done CrossFit. A lot of masters right now were ex-triathletes. They did sports growing up. Like my partner Greg Smiler's in the CrossFit Games 2013. He played hockey. He played all these multiple sports growing up. He did triathlons, Ironman, and then he got into CrossFit. So a lot of the masters right now, they come from that background pre-CrossFit. Like James was a freaking beach volleyball star, and somewhere in between being a rock star and a wrestler.
That was all pre. Well, no, he's perfect. He falls right into what you're talking about, Mike.
Yeah.
I think that he was able to get so good so fast because he had initial abilities, but then there was a big hiatus of.
It was like a 20-year gap. 20-year gap of just dancing around on stage and not really doing much else.
The lifestyle's tough, but it wasn't tough on like the muscles and the joints, So where I deal with a lot of injuries just like we were talking about, like I've been competing and training
everything
always. So like there hasn't been a break for me. Whereas he's had the break, and he has been able to make those massive jumps, which has been awesome.
Yeah, and also like speaking about myself, I've never not played a sport since I can remember, and I played, professional football overseas, and mileage on my body, I've destroyed my body. I've hurt my knees, I've hurt my back, I've had surgery, I've ruptured my Achilles, I've dislocated my elbow, I've done multiple things. There's a lot of, and I've never stopped training since I can remember.
Don't be a baby.
Don't be a baby.
Actually, what is it? What's your thing? Don't be a bitch? Is that what it is?
Don't be a bitch. For the record on this podcast, I have beat Bill Grundler in every competition I've competed against him in. So just throwing that out there.
Not individual.
I didn't see you on the
No, never
Mike,
individual. Only base. I'm okay with that.
I could have swore I looked
That's
for your
okay.
name
The
at the
Tremolo
top of the
brothers have reigned
leaderboard, and I
supreme.
didn't see a darndest thing. On the other side of that, how do you deal with, an athlete who is in their 30s, 40s with an athletic age of 0 who is freaked out by everything, right? So everything hurts and is terrifying when you've never picked up a barbell before in your life or cycled through box jumps or whatever. How do you kind of convince people that it's going to be okay and this will not kill you?
I think that you asked some interesting questions. I think a lot of that has to do with their mobility and knowing what their mobility is when you see them. And if you warm them up properly, and like if you've ever been to Inferno or if you've ever been to Precision, there's a very specific warm up and very specific mobility that happens after every beginning of every class. And you should know your athletes really well as a coach. If you know your athletes well as a coach, you should know what they're capable of doing when it comes to movements in CrossFit, and then knowing how their mobility is going to affect them and then change things up accordingly.
How much time for Bill and James would you say as a percentage do you spend on that sort of injury prevention, mobility whatever your practice is to try to keep yourself out of the hurt locker?
That's a great question. Is that for Bill and James or for me?
All of you, yeah.
Well,
As their
I'll
coach,
start
I
on that
don't spend
one.
a lot of time on it.
Well, not true. Like the whole reason that I went to Mike,
That's true.
and I haven't had. I did all my own programming for myself. I mean, I've been an athlete a long time. I know my body pretty well. But when I ruptured my ACL, when I blew my ACL out of the regionals, I wasn't really sure how to come back from something like that. So I needed someone that had some understanding of like, okay, how do you build strength back on an injury to come back? I knew that Mike had that issue with his Achilles. I knew that he had the Olympic lifting background, and that was one of the things that made me go to him. And we already had a relationship anyway, but it was like, okay, I need some specific help on this. So there were things that he was helping me develop through that injury, which was good. The things that I needed. The fact that he had that background and being able to work with other athletes that have also had ACL issues or, ruptured ligaments or whatever it was, he knew how to bring it back. And that was huge for me. So I needed that. I don't think that many coaches, either they don't have the experience or they don't have the understanding of how to bring someone back incrementally. Most athletes like myself, if I feel good, I'm going to go. And especially if you're a good athlete, you don't want to not go because you feel like you're wasting time. So you need someone that's able to take you through those steps smoothly.
No, I guess you're right. Yeah, let me phrase my answer. Yeah, I actually do spend a lot of time with them on that. Their programming has a lot of accessory work. All my programming has a lot of accessory work that is to prehab before athletes. A lot of shoulder accessory work to maintain so they don't get shoulder impingements, etc. A lot of stuff for Bill that would make him strong enough so he strengthens the areas around his knee, like his quads and his hamstring and his posterior chain. Most CrossFitters have very, very, very weak posterior chains, and that tends to be where you need to focus on. I know James does a lot of it. People talk to James all the time when he's in his programming, and they'll be like, when are you going to do a WOD?
Right.
It's because he's got a lot of stuff he's got to do to get ready for that WOD, or a lot of accessory work he's got to do to make him better at his workouts.
Does the primacy of the WOD kind of fall off in terms of programming importance after a certain point? I mean, how much are you getting out of a Metcon that you need to do it 5-6 days a week as a Masters athlete versus if you're 25?
Okay, here's what I'll say on that. More is never better. Better is always better. So if you are generally speaking, most people think that if they do a bunch of workouts that they put in the work, that isn't necessarily always the work that you need to put in. So if your engine is good and you've been working, well across your volume and you have a real good capacity, then at that point, it's not a matter of doing 3 and 4 workouts in a day. That doesn't get you, you're not gaining anything out of that. Where you would gain are the little accessory works to tighten up those stabilizer muscles so that when you get tired, you have you have the strength and a good foundation with those stabilizers to keep you moving, to keep you strong, and keep you stable as you start to get tired. That's where it gets important. It's not just about doing more and more and more and more Metcons. And that's where I think, and I've looked at a lot of other people's programs. Volume is not the key, especially for a Masters athlete. And I've seen a lot of the programs out there, the big name programs, and I just think the volume's too high. It's a very general based. Here's a blanket set of workouts. Go ahead and do it. And like, oh, everyone's doing this Masters version and that Master version, but they don't realize that that's not designed for them. And honestly, I don't think that many Masters athletes are able to get all the time in, or are able to get all that stuff in just based on the time that they have. It's rare.
Like James, you should chime in on this because we've kind of James's programming up the last month. James went from a decent amount of volume to get ready for the games, but we started noticing some breakdowns because he's a Masters athlete. We changed up James's program so that, and James is also very strong. So I said, if you have to choose that day what you need to do, I'd rather you do your skill work and your accessory work and then go right into that WOD against somebody than lift. Because honestly, you're lifting right now. You're where you need to be. We don't need to worry about that. James, do you have something you want to throw in on that and kind of how we've adjusted?
Well, what was good about this year, a lot of the programming was more or less maintaining, like through the Open and working through the qualifier and stuff. And then it wasn't until the games training really kind of picked up. That's when the volume started getting, increased. But again, yeah, we were really focusing on, being smart, keeping the motor running, throwing more logs on the fire, that kind of thing, rather than punishing ourselves with like all this extra heavyweight work and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And what was great is that we just kind of took like a month or two and just picked it up for a little bit rather than punishing ourselves for the whole year of all this like heavy volume and stuff like that. But I think it's been beneficial in that regard.
We also picked up working on his weaknesses a lot more. Because James has got a lot of great skills. His only weakness right now, I would say, is his running. So we had to pick that
Not anymore.
a bit. Not anymore. No, it's getting cleaned up. It's pretty cleaned up. We saw that on Tuesday. We saw that on Tuesday, didn't we?
What happened Tuesday?
Oh, we met for a lake workout. So we did the run swim workout, our version of it, and we had some good athletes there. James beat him by like 2 minutes plus in the workout. Pretty impressive.
Bill, real quick, post your ACL, anytime you have like a catastrophic injury like that, did you find yourself immediately after that sort of way more attentive mentally to the feedback your body's giving you, or like your proprioception change or anything like that?
I would say that immediately following that, I felt everything, and that just irritated the hell out of me. Because like, I've been lucky enough with all my years of wrestling, all my years of lifeguard competitions and whatever competitions I've done, that I haven't had a massive injury like that. And then when all of a sudden that happens, you lose confidence in your body because you don't know if something's just going to blow out like that again. So there's always that fear that something I'm pushing is something going to snap, because that's what happened on that. There was no, oh, here it comes, it's going to hurt, it's hurting a little bit, and then it goes. It's just I came down and bam, it was done.
Yeah.
So, losing that amount of confidence was tough. And that it took that year, man, probably even more than that, honestly, to really have the confidence in it. Because what I noticed was I'd start working and I have a pretty good head that I can make myself kind of believe anything that I needed to believe. I can put myself into that place. But I started realizing that I wasn't strong enough. My body wasn't strong enough yet, so I really started compensating. I was starting to hang to to the good knee, and I'm starting to move wrong. And when we do that, that's where masters athletes, especially, that's where we get injured. We're setting ourselves up for injury. So even though we can deal with it and we can compensate for the short term, it's going to crush us in the long term. And I didn't want that. I'm not ready to stop competing yet, so I want to be able to keep on going. So it was a matter of being very smart about this. So, yeah, I would say I was more aware of it. I really tried not to let myself get bogged down by it, because you just can't let that happen to yourself. You got to be able to be strong mentally and be able to deal with it and keep on moving ahead. So that's where it got tough.
Do you think that you have like a better foundation for your confidence now, having worked through that experience, than maybe before you had been hurt? Yeah,
I think so. I think anytime you have to deal with some sort of adversity and then turn it around and make it work in your favor, it's a plus for you. And that whole, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger thing, I think there's a lot to be said for that. I think that there are a lot of masters athletes that, even if they're great athletes, they don't necessarily have that, because they forgot the last time they got injured, and here they are now. They've been now competing and training for 4 years, which is a really, really short amount of time. And if they were any sort of an athlete before, it was probably 20 years ago. So I think a lot of those athletes coming back in, that's the shortcoming. It's like they have to be strong here, and a lot of them, the last time they remember is when they were 20 years old, and they're not that. So they, just like we were talking about earlier, they're hurt. Now they're like, oh my God, I'm freaked out. I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that now. And it's just about going, okay, I got, here's the wall. I have to go around that wall somehow, or I have to adjust to that so that I can still compete without letting it bog you down and flush you out, basically. So yeah, I definitely feel that I'm stronger from that. And I think that a lot of athletes, not that they need to have that, but if they can have some sort of an incident, that works in their favor if they have that. Yeah.
You watch Bill in his stuff, the way he moved in 2015, just doing certain movements, you can 100% tell he's favoring his good knee. Box press, especially on his box jump overs, you can tell it's very obvious that he's one-legged. And then you watch him in 2016, last year, he's very, very confident in both his legs, and everything's moving at the right speed. Same watching James. James in his first year, he's hit her back. So he could watch in 2015. He's favoring that back the entire time. He's lacking confidence in his body, what his body can do at that level, because he had never really competed at that level. And then you watch James in 2016, who's been at that level, and he's throwing down with the best of them. His back's feeling good because he learned how to take care of it for the year. And then you watch him the final day where everyone's supposed to be broken down, and James is better.
Yeah, the acceleration at the end of last year's events, just looking at the stats when I was doing my show prep was kind of impressive out of James. It was like he got mad on that last day.
Well, James figured out who he was as a CrossFit athlete in the final day, right? Like, James, what do you think, man? Like,
yeah, let's touch on that.
Well, I mean, I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, I guess I was still, all you have is how you've been training and what you've done in the past. You can't see the future, so you don't really know. So at the beginning of the thing, at the games last year, I mean, I was just kind of like going off of where I was and, that information. So I didn't really understand my go switch yet. I think what happened was it was right before the day before, I think it was the run box jump, burpee box jump workout.
Yeah, that was a Saturday.
That night I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to turn it on and see what happens. And I never did that before. I never did I'm just going to turn it on and see where it goes. If I burn out, then I burn out. Like, having that opportunity to take a chance and fail was a moment, I think. And then of course, coming back and to do really well on the strength portion, just kind of, built that confidence up and allowed me to kind of really adjust and to rethink my inks, if you will, and put in a more competitive effort. I just never really pushed my body that way yet, so I was unsure of how the outcome was going to be.
And then he carried it over to Wodapalooza too. Like, it was like, I gotta say, like, I really feel like James's CrossFit career, like where he was going to become a force to really be reckoned with, started Sunday of last year's CrossFit Games.
For sure.
And now it's like you got to really watch out, because that was it. That was the switch, and now the switch is on, and now we're going a year later, and he's already accomplished podium and being in the lead at Wodapalooza for a day and a half.
I think what happens is like the more you do this, like, obviously with anything that you do, you're allowing yourself to progress. I don't think that you're ever gonna be a failure in any situation if you're open to the process, and I think that's what's kind of happened with my journey in the CrossFit thing. Absolutely.
Well, I think also that he went from thinking, Bill's the CrossFit guy. I'm just kind of playing this. I'm not really, I'm the new guy. And he didn't let himself go, what the hell, man? I'm good at this stuff. Like,
well,
I'm strong.
That's
I'm
a really
fast,
good
and
point.
going.
That's a really good point. And, not to say, we're brothers and that's the scenario trip, but it was, I never really was like, I'm the CrossFitter, because that's Bill. Bill's been the CrossFitter.
Yeah.
That's been his sport now for, 10 years.
Long
so
time.
It was just kind of like me, just like, hey man, I'm just having fun, hanging out. Bill's going to win. Like that. Here to make Bill win here. That kind of thing. And which is awesome. I love Bill and I've always been his biggest fan. And, that was the purpose behind it. But there was a moment when Bill got taken out of the games last year for really just a stupid mistake and a bad call. And all of a sudden, Bill wasn't in that situation anymore, and it allowed me to go, well shit, what am I going to do? Am I just going to be the guy rooting on the sidelines, or am I going to participate in this and compete?
And in reality, like, so I got knocked out of the competition. I was coming in after a great year, coming in strong. I got knocked out because of minimum work requirement debacle. Call it debacle.
Yeah, we'll call it that.
But what I will say is this, is that, the whole reason that I decided to even do the Masters thing was because of James. And I got knocked out. It was all on him. He wasn't worried about me or what I had to do. And I was like, all right, man, do your thing. Like, just go, and he did it. I was really, proud. 2, happy, and 3, just stoked to watch him like actually go for it. And that was the first time he honestly opened up with like, hey man, I'm doing it now. Like I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna like go, well, maybe, and I'll try. And it was, he went for it. It was awesome. And I'm not a good spectator. But it was really fun to be there and yell for him, out on like the main court. I mean, I lost my voice going in. I had to commentate right after that, and I lost my voice yelling for him. It was so awesome.
Yeah.
So it's watching his journey going from the I'm not a CrossFitter to I'm a CrossFitter. Has been really cool.
I mean, he took Definitely, 2 top threes in the last day. How do you not lose your mind? And Bill's. I mean, Bill and my brother and I are about the same time in years and age as Bill and James. So, and we're very close, my brother and I. And I know that bond is incredible. And like, we're not gonna coach each other, but we're still gonna be there in your face, in the back. And Bill was right there. I mean, he got knocked out, but the very next morning he was at briefing, and then right into the warm up area with us and James, and we did it together. It was and all of us were one group. And
that was really exciting. That was really exciting to have. I mean, I was probably the luckiest girl in the ball. Geez. I had like the two amazing coaches to help me through that. It was couldn't ask for anything more than that. That was pretty epic for sure.
So now we're 2.5 weeks out from the games this year. There's still not a barbell in sight. Surely, with the opportunity to program a dozen or so more events, there's they own barbells in Wisconsin. I know that there have to be some in the state somewhere. I'm sure he can find some. Anyway, how are you guys feeling? Like, is your last 2 weeks of training pretty much? I mean, the strength is already there. Your motor's already built. It's just like stay healthy and don't do anything dumb. Is that where we're at now?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're both in a maintenance phase.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's all about health right now. I could care less about any gains at this point. I just care about that they go.
We're not going to gain anything anyway.
No.
It's just about kind of managing whatever the aches and pains you have, and keeping yourself like confident, mentally strong. Like that's what it is. That's what it is now. You want to be able to go into getting over there and being strong here, just being stoked and fired up and all that. Not thinking any negative thoughts, not thinking anything. No matter what the issue is, just being as positive as possible. Go into it with a big smile on your face.
Absolutely. I think the object is too. It's just that at this point, you really want to have fun going into this whole Madison thing.
Yeah.
Instead of beating yourself up and beating yourself down physically, mentally.
Whenever you stand in that first day briefing and you're in that giant tent with all the masters, all you ever hear them do is complain about how messed up they are.
How many injuries they have.
Injured and how that's injured. And I don't ever want to hear any of my athletes say that in that tent. I don't want them to say, I'm injured, I'm broken, this hurts. I want them to say, I feel great. I literally feel great. I'm not lying. And that's the point.
Well, I mean, I think as a coach, you haven't done your job if your athletes arrive at the biggest competition, maybe of their career, all dinged up and battered and taped up. Like, something has gone wrong in your preparation at that point. If you arrive at a culminating experience as an athlete with a laundry list of problems.
Well, yes and no. I think that any high-level athlete, I don't think that any high-level athlete comes in truly 100%. I think that, like, if they've been training really, really hard, there's always going to be something that's like, something that's going to be tweaked, or, my shoulder's a little tight. You're never like truly 100%. But I also think that a lot of the Masters athletes, they do that because they want everyone to think that they're not ready. And so you're not, it's a game. Like when everyone stands in line and bitches and complains about what's broken and all the issues that they have, yeah, maybe they are sore, but what they're doing is they're prepping you. So, you're not gonna be paying attention to this guy because he's hurt. You're not gonna be paying attention to this guy because they're sick. I didn't get to work out for the last week because of X, Y, and Z. And it's like, man, come on. All of you, come on. Everyone's just they're building up all their excuses right now. We just don't say anything. Hey, how you doing? Yeah. Fine. How things going? Fine. I'm like my 16-year-old daughter. How was your day? Good.
Well, it's good you have some...
Also, it goes two ways. They're also setting themselves up in case they don't do well. They have an excuse.
Yeah. So let's touch on that mental prep a little bit. Are you the kind of, both of you guys as athletes, are you the kind of guys that like to walk in super calm, or do you like to get a little fired up before your competitions?
I don't know, a bit of both, I guess. I mean, it's hard not to get fired up, but I like to stay that calm before the storm type of kind of place. A little bit more containment.
Yeah, the extreme comparisons I always like to make are like a power lifter versus an Olympic weightlifter. The power lifter is always like smacking themselves and having people smack them and all this other stuff. And the Olympic weightlifter always sort of just saunters up to the bar and like says a prayer and meditates for 10 minutes and then picks the bar up.
The way I'm best is I have to almost literally not think about the workout right before it happens. I mean, and I don't think that's just kind of how my world has been anyway. So I do better with like, okay, just start the clock and we'll go. And we'll hit it. So usually, the last couple times when we've gone to the games, the first year, I would always look up into the stands and I'd see my daughter and I'd wave to my daughter and that would be getting my head off. That's last year, me and Jim would go out and we'd do the whole like bro handshake, hug and all that before we go. So it's like all of that stuff to keep your head off of what's going on. Because if it was a fight, it would be different. But it's not a fight. It's a whole different thing. So you have to be mentally calm, because once you get into it, like you can worry about blowing all your energy there. There's no sense to do it beforehand.
Yeah.
It's not a boxer. It's not a boxing match. It's not a wrestling match. It's a totally different story.
Yeah, I've been privileged enough to coach a decent amount of athletes at the CrossFit Games now, and they are definitely the calmest I've ever coached before they go on the floor. I've had a couple that just, you can't even find them 10 minutes before because they're taking pictures with somebody or they're going nuts or you just got to corral them. They're just so they're so over the top happy that they're there and they're like fans in the warm-up area, or they're just like so nervous they don't know what to do, or they're just super fired up and they have all this extra energy they have to somehow expend. They've been there. You can tell they've been there before, so they stay very collected.
Well, and I think your guys' background as competitive athletes, even before you were doing CrossFit, helps. And I mean, Bill, you were a fire department captain, so performing in the moment with a cool head is something that's kind of been baked into you, literally, over time. Yeah,
and I think that's one of the reasons why I do okay without having to have a big warm up, because that's what firefighting was. I would joke about doing firefighter workouts where you would do them without warming up. You just hop into the workout and just do stuff, because that's what we would do. And granted, it wasn't, the same movements, but you're still having to lift somebody up or climb a ladder or climb a wall or pull something up and push something up. So, there's a lot of that kind of built in, but that was what kept me ready for those types of incidents, was not being overly fired up. Because if you get all fired up about seeing this big wall of fire and all these things you have to do, then all of a sudden your body's so tight and so tense that you can't respond to whatever it is that you need to do. Even when I wrestled, I was the same way. I wasn't one of those guys that can get fired up. The way I would do it is I would just do this weird pacing thing back and forth and just kind of not zone out necessarily, but just try to stay relaxed. And that was how I did it back then. But again, I think that everyone has their individual way of doing it. Staying calm, or some people are like, they laugh and joke at everything. I'm not that much. Yeah. Usually for me, I'm like, man, let's just get going here. Just start it already. Say go and let's go.
I think Val Voberl was talking when we interviewed her a couple of weeks ago about how she's always getting yelled at for yawning in the warm-up area. Yeah. She downregulates before she goes out to kick everyone's butt.
She manages her adrenaline.
Yeah. Just
super and that's a big deal, because you could be, that fight or flight is it's an important factor that we have built into us, but it can go over the top and completely ruin you as an athlete as well. You have to be able to control that nitrous as it goes. It can't just go crazy, because if it does, you're going to go flying off like a rocket some wrong direction, and then it just ruins everything you tried to do.
I have a question for Bill. Going back to the seminar, because I want to talk about that a little more. Bill, what do you think people are going to gain from being in attendance on Saturday? What do you like? Why should they sign up?
I think the main reason, two things. If they're a competitive masters athlete, they need to understand truly what they're in for when they sign up to be a masters athlete. The fact of the matter is that if you're a competitive athlete, a high-level competitive athlete, you truly are shorting functionality in your life later. That's just how it is. The more elite, the more competitive you are, the higher the level of training you have to do, the more you're going to be hurting yourself. That's the trade-off. It's not fitness as competition. If you are an older athlete, period, and you just want to learn how to be a better athlete, then what you'll be learning is the important parts of being an older athlete. One, recovery, and how important recovery is, and proper ways to recover. We all basically know, but it's like truly sitting down and talking about them and understanding what those things are and how they work for us. Two is going to be understanding, okay, if I haven't done any sort of athletic stuff for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, what now am I coming to the table with? And then how am I going to be able to handle that? Injuries, either old injuries that are now like you don't even remember them because they've been so long and you didn't do anything about them. And how do you fix that mobility and stability? So we'll talk about some of that type of stuff and tricks and tips that have worked for me and that I've worked with other clients. And then understanding proper modifications and what a scale is and what a modification is and what those are supposed to do for you to help improve your workout. Those are the main things, the two different segments that I'm going to be looking at. And then the last part is just going to be mental toughness. Mm-hmm. And I think that going back to that, sitting in line with all the masters athletes and everyone giving all their excuses of what's wrong. Being older, the excuse is, well, I'm old, so I can't do this. Well, I'm old, so this hurts, so I can't do that. Yeah. Well, I'm old, so I can't do this thing, I can't do that. Well, I shouldn't be able to do this, I shouldn't be able to do that. And every time you line those things up on yourself, all it does is make it harder and harder and harder and harder for you to be able to do whatever, whether it's compete, whether it's just train, whether it's spend the whole day with your kids at the park because you're too tired to play. So the last third of the seminar is going to be a lot on mental toughness, being able to keep a good, solid, strong mind, and different ways of going about that.
Absolutely,
and other cool stuff like that,
and other cool things so associated. Yeah, it seems like the underlying theme here is be an educated athlete. Like, come in with your brain turned on, and don't just wait for everybody else to do your thinking for you, because nobody's going to be able to get the feedback from you fast enough to make the decisions that you can make internally if you go in with an educated mindset.
Well, yeah, like I said earlier, there just isn't a true template for a master's athlete. Every template that we look at is based on people that are 25 to 27 years old. And, even if someone wanted to look at the things that I'm doing, I'm lucky enough to have some pretty good genes. My parents did some great things for us, so we have some pretty good genetics. So you can't all of a sudden say that, well, if I do exactly what this person does, I'm going to get the exact same results. It doesn't necessarily work that way. That's not how sports is. Everyone comes to the table with their deck of cards, and you have to deal with whatever you have to deal with.
Yeah.
So I think we have to be smart about what we do. We have to be realistic in the fact that, okay, what roadblocks am I going to have to contend with? But then also be able to hold high standards and realize, okay, I can function around these things. I just have to be smart about it. You can't be a dumb jock. It just doesn't work.
Can't be an old dumb jock, especially.
And there's, like I said, I've said this before. Yeah, and I've said this before. There's 4 things that masters athletes should do that they're going to be successful. And this is all competitors, but really I feel this about masters. And that's 1, have education. Right, educated coach, programmer, someone that has their support. 2, have a bodywork specialist, because there's going to be tweaks. You have to work around that. 3, nutrition, and I really feel like I see a lot of masters athletes not on the nutrition the way they need to be for sports performance, not for looking good. If you're going to compete, it has to be sports performance nutrition, not the paleo lifestyle to have great abs. And 4, having a support network. And that means your family's all in on your goals, not just you, and trying to work around your family, and you have to find, there has to be some give or take there, but
I always watch the masters athletes in the gyms that I'm in, where it's, just the husband or just the wife in there. I'm like, how does that, you're putting a lot of time in here, and I never see the other half of your life. That can't be going well. I don't understand it. My wife actually drugged me into CrossFit, so we're there all the time.
I got a master's athlete, Allison Locke. She's in the gym all the darn time. She's in the CrossFit Games this year. And her husband doesn't do CrossFit, doesn't touch it, but he's her biggest fan, So he loves it. He's the guy buys the shirts. He's all in on it, So it just depends. Like sometimes couples need an out.
My wife's never bought my shirt. What the hell?
Really?
I want to just do a real quick rundown of a preview of the 2017 CrossFit Games. Obviously, we haven't seen a barbell yet. I can't imagine we're not going to see a barbell. It'll probably be like the last event or something. We have seen there's going to be a run, swim, run, which you guys have already attacked a little bit in your training. The mountain bike is coming. I don't know if you guys have been practicing on your downhill courses out there in SoCal or not.
We talked about that with Val Verbal, and I was like, I hope it's not a mountain bike. And you're like, yeah, there is. I'm like,
oh, it's going to happen.
Shit. I don't know if the mountain bikes are the Masters, though. I mean, Dave Castro.
Yeah, he didn't say all divisions.
I really hope there is a mountain bike.
Oh, I hope there is. God, I hope there is. I
For
hope
everybody else. I don't know about the Masters.
Rock gardens and just like brutal 12% climbs.
Well, you showed a hardtail bike, so it's not going to become crazy mountain biking. It's going to be more of a course ride. I don't know.
It's Dave Castro. I mean, anything.
Bill's the best. Bill's the expert on this, man.
Oh yeah.
Bill?
I honestly think that they're not going to go crazy on the bike. The bike is just to have a bike out there. I mean, if they do a bike, it's just the way I see it. Honestly, is I think it'll be a run, swim, run within a certain amount of time, and then you do a biking thing after that. They're going to get all the triathlon stuff out of the way. I mean, I think they're putting that in there because they have a bunch of trails out there.
They do.
Yeah. But I mean, they're going to have something.
It's definitely a toast to the town because it's supposed to be like Triathlon City or whatever they call it.
Yeah, it's one of the triathlon capitals of the nation. It's
super big a thing.
But I don't think it'll be like regionals where there's no barbells. I just don't think that'll be the case, especially for the open division. There's just too many events to have to not have a barbell in it unless they're going to be manufacturing everything. So I don't think that'll be the case, though.
Well, it would make Rogue very happy to just supply the whole event with new stuff that they can sell to gyms all over the world. So that that could be a thing.
Well, I mean, Rogue never has a problem with stuff anyway. I mean, people buy the big bobs from them all the time, and the big sleds and the pigs and the slugs and everything else. So
they just have their garage.
I don't know worm for heck's sake. What else? What do I need? I only need a worm for 3 months out of the year.
Well, if you have a team, I mean, the worm's been there since. I mean, how many years has the worm been there? Like the last 4 years.
Every year, and now once they put it in regionals, it's going to be there.
Oh yeah, totally. Totally.
Do you really think there's going to be a bike for the Masters, Bill? You think that for Masters and Teens? Bikes on?
I think they should. I mean, for that, why not?
We said they should swim for years, and they're finally doing it this year.
Well, yeah, no, I agree. But I think that would be. If everyone's doing the run, swim, run, it seems natural that would be the next piece.
Going to the bike.
But yeah, whether they say that everyone's going to do it or not, I mean, I'm going to say yes just because I think it should do that. Everyone's going to be outside anyway, so why not?
Hey, James, how do you feel about a mountain bike?
I love mountain bikes.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It could be one of those silly little clue things where it's like it's a bike. Everybody thinks it's a mountain bike, but it's really an assault bike. I mean, who knows? There's an assault bike somewhere on the trail that you just ran on. You got to find
it. Scavenger hunt.
Yes, exactly. Scavenger hunt.
I'm waiting for like an orienteering event or like land navigation or something. That would be.
I've said it 1,000 times. When are they just going to drop all these athletes off on a helicopter in the middle of nowhere and say, "Find your way out"?
Yeah, man.
Do it like that.
Survival schools in the Pacific Northwest. Just drop them off. And we'll see you in 3 days.
Yeah. Make sure you make it back by Thursday. For
That'd be terrible. Great. That could go either way.
Could go either way.
I think we'd see a lot of guys like Matt Frazier coming out a lot skinnier than he went in. So does anybody touch freaking Matt Frazier this year? He won the Open and regionals by like a country mile. The guy is the size of New Jersey. Like
no one's gonna touch him. Not yet.
Okay.
Not
Unless
yet.
he's really bad on a mountain bike. That could be his Achilles heel.
I don't think he's bad at anything at this point.
No. Again, I don't think it'll be technical enough on the mountain bike to where someone will do damage on that. It's going to be who can drive the cranks, and that's all he's going to need to do.
Sure. And there's so many scored events, he doesn't have to do anything spectacular on the mountain bike. Just has to do well enough.
He only won one last year.
Yeah, how many events are there going to be? Like 30 events?
I think there's going to be a lot more scored events for everyone.
A lot more scored events even for the Masters this year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. Bill and I have talked about this pretty in depth. I think it's going to be a completely different CrossFit Games in Wisconsin than we've seen at the Step Up Center.
So like a lot of smaller events, or
I think you're going to see. I think an extra day of events.
Oh wow!
I have this feeling.
Yeah. And
Have
we're
to
going to go
run
into
some more.
Tuesday. Yeah.
No, I mean, they check in Wednesday, and there's nothing to say that they can't go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Nothing to say they can't do that.
1 a.m.
I
on
think they
Thursday
will.
morning.
I think Thursday they're going to do all that endurance stuff. I think they hit the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they get back on that floor.
Okay.
Do 2 workouts a day.
It's going to be exciting anyway. I mean, there have been so many changes already to this season. I think it's going to be one of the more interesting seasons to watch. I think the women's field is like wide open. I don't see a standout really anywhere. You know, eyeballing what we've seen so far this year, I think there's a lot of parity in the women's field. Does anybody stand out to you guys?
Honestly, the way that the podium has been the last 2 years, it's going to be hard to knock those 3 out. Carrie Pierce, if she's on fire, I mean, she might, actually make it breaking into that top 3. Catherine's look tough. Those women are sitting up the top, and I don't want to say they have it locked, but I think that you have probably, depending on the events that come out, if there's a lot of new things that come out, then maybe you have those like top 8 girls that there could be a shuffle. But if it's relatively similar to the things we've seen, I think it's going to be hard to bump those top 5 out.
Yeah, it'll be fun games to watch. I'm going to be back from Iowa just in time to lock myself in my office with my computer for a week and watch all the carnage go down. Guys, thanks so much for making all the time. I know this is a challenging one to put together because we all have these crazy schedules. So I appreciate you guys elbowing out some room for us. Saturday, the 22nd at 9:30 in the morning at Precision CrossFit. Bill Grundler is hosting the Masters Experience. If you're a Masters athlete, if you coach Masters athletes, if you've even heard the words Masters athlete before, you need to go check that out. It's $100. You're going to learn a lot of stuff in 4 hours. So thanks again for taking the time. We'll chat again soon.
Right on. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Yep, we'll see
See you guys soon.